Hey guys, Scott here. I haven't made a fun tier list in almost 3 years now. We've got a lot of different content, and my opinions about certain things have changed, so I thought I would actually combine what I did previously, which was most fun to play against and most fun play as two separate lists. I'm going to try to average them into one. So this is a fun tier list of the killer's overall fun potential in the entire game. So this is a combination of how fun they are to go against and how fun they are to actually play. I figured I'll try to do something like that. Not very scientific or anything, but let's just go right from the beginning, and I'll show you what I mean by kind of combining and averaging the two. So first up is Trapper. Now, playing against Trapper is a fat D tier. It is definitely very, very not interesting to go against. Probably the most exciting thing you can do against Trapper is follow him stealthily and try to break his traps as he's setting up. That's about it. That's the most fun thing you can do against Trapper. Other than that, a lot of chases are decided by traps that are in grass with, tar add-ons, and you just physically cannot see them whatsoever, so you just die to something you can't see, and it doesn't really ever feel satisfying. However, I will say, playing as Trapper can be pretty satisfying. Setting up a solid web and then corralling people into that web, watching a snowball happen, that can be pretty satisfying. So, to playing as, I could put that in maybe like B, because the satisfaction of getting a perfect web of traps that people run into is very good. But playing against them is D, so we're going to average that out to a C. So that's kind of how I'm doing this list. I'm trying to take both into account there. Wraith. Wraith, I find very enjoyable to play. He would start off in A for me. The reason is Wraith doesn't really have like any bad maps. I'm kind of always happy to play Wraith, unless you get Borgo, which is horrible for everybody. For the most part, Wraith is pretty much okay on every map, and the best part is he actually excels on maps that I would normally hate to get with other killers. So if you get like RPD or Larry's or, any of the indoor maps like that, Wraith is going to actually do better on those maps compared to worse. So it's very, it's the reason I like maining Wraith. He's one of my mains for sure. And the reason is he's just very low stress. I always know I'm going to have at the very least a decent time. He's also a decently strong killer. If you use Swift Hunt, you can actually use his power for anti-loop. You can run in front of windows and body block. There's actually a skill component to Wraith, which I do love as well. And overall, he's a pretty good time. His add-ons are all very fun and well-designed. He's just a well-made killer, in my opinion. However, going against Wraith, if they chase you, I would say also A tier. Because trying to counter him whipping around loops with Swift Hunt is very, very fun. And I do like that a lot. However, most Wraiths do not play like that. Most Wraiths slap on Sloppy Butcher and actually won't chase you at all. They'll hit you out of stealth and run away, and then they'll try to get you again later with no chases. So playing against that kind of Wraith kind of puts him in like a C for me. He does have to chase you, but a lot of the time he'll just hit and run over and over and over again, and that can be pretty non-exciting to go against. But because he is fun to play, in my opinion, I'd say we'll average him out to about a B. Billy is S. It's not even a question. He's one of the most fun killers in the game to go against, especially if the killer knows what they're doing. Going against the curve Billy, in my opinion, is the single most fun thing in the entire game. One that knows how to actually do it. It's not fun watching a bad curve Billy just slam into walls, and almost feels like beating up a wounded puppy at that point. But a actual good curve Billy that knows how to do it is very, very fun to go against. And it usually is one of them because there's like 12 people playing Hillbilly still, and they're usually all very good at Hillbilly. So I think he's very fun to play against. In terms of playing as him, I would say that probably pushes him down to, I'd say B for me. But that's only because it's a skill issue. I'm just simply not good enough to make use of his curves and stuff like that. So I'm going to say overall, probably A in the middle. Just because playing as him, I can never get to that level where I'm actually hitting those insane curves. So it's mostly just me back revving people, which is, it's fine, but it's not super interesting. So I'd say A is pretty fair for Billy. So he actually went down a little tier for me because I tried playing him and it was hard. Nurse is, playing as Nurse, in my opinion, is not really that exciting. Once you get good at Nurse, there's just really nothing to it. It's pretty much you just win. So that's not very exciting. However, sometimes for letting off steam, it can be pretty satisfying to just basically have the survivors have no options. So for that reason, it can be pretty satisfying playing as Nurse. Playing against Nurse, though, that's a pretty solid D. If it's a bad Nurse, that's the only exception. Bad Nurses, you could probably put in a C, but Nurse in general, I don't even need to explain why. So I'm gonna say that's a C tier. Myers. Playing as Myers can be a combination of fun and frustrating. Sneaking up on people and immediately doing tier 3 before they have the chance to actually respond. That could be pretty satisfying. It's like a Giga Wraith at that point. If you have Dead Rabbit, Monitored Abuse, you have a 6-meter tear radius, which means the survivors have basically 1.5 seconds to react to you before they just die, which means they're going to die. So that can be very satisfying. Playing against Myers, though, is not fun at all. Most Myers will run Tombstone or something like that. Dying before you even get a chance to do anything is awful. A lot of Myers will just sort of 99 your teammate and then sneak up on you, down you, even though you did nothing. You had no interaction with the killer. You just instantly die with no chance to react because your teammate let them stalk you. I think it's kind of hard to tell. I'm going to put him in C because playing as Myers sometimes can be very satisfying. Sneaking up on people, instantly killing them before they can react is a very fun thing sometimes. But I would say going against Myers is not fun at all. It's usually just you getting punished for your teammates getting stalked. So, Hag. Hag, in terms of setting up a web, again, can be pretty satisfying. It's really, really nice when you have very equidistant traps that basically cover all options that a survivor has running away from you. And it's a very satisfying feeling knowing that you're going to be able to kind of put people exactly where you want to go and then teleport and hit them because of that. So because of that, I think she's probably a B to play. But in terms of going against Hag, that's a solid D to play or play it against because, man, that is just, there's very little chasing. It's just basically you run into an area where she has traps and she hits you, or you run into an area where she doesn't have traps and she doesn't chase you. So it ends up being very, very binary. Again, not very many chases happening, very uninteresting gameplay. So B plus D, C average, we'll go with that. Doctor. Doctor is kind of satisfying to play, but I don't really think he's that engaging. Doctor really just boils down to often getting closer to someone who's at a pallet or they're near a pallet. You get closer, you shock, you get closer, you shock, you get closer, you shock, you get too close, now you get to hit them. That's basically how every loop of Doctor goes. And yeah, it's just not very exciting. It's a very consistent way to hit people at loops, but like I said, it's not exhilarating. There's not much of a skill cap there. If you run the right add-ons, you're just running the same timer. Unless they have a connected loop that they can chain, the survivor is going to eventually get hit. So honestly, Doctor is also not particularly interesting on either side to go against. Doctor is guaranteed to hit at basically every loop, but it takes time. So it's not super satisfying for the Doctor, and it's not satisfying as the killer. But at least you can attempt to run around pallets. You can still do stuff against them. Next, we got Huntress, who, in my opinion, is actually pretty fun to go against. I like going against Huntress, maybe because I played her for a long time, but I know, like, what long-range shots good Huntresses are going to try to do, and doing the standstill tech is one of my favorite things in the game. The standstill tech is where a Huntress is aiming a shot at you, and you just stand still. Really good Huntresses will actually miss you because it's such a stupid thing to do against a good Huntress that they will actually overcompensate in a direction and miss. Now, bad Huntresses might just hit you because they're just waiting for you to not move, but I love doing the standstill tech against good Huntresses. It is literally one of my favorite things. I just had a Huntress game maybe a week ago against a really good Huntress, and it worked several times. It is very, very satisfying to do. But yeah, I like the whole concept of trying to dodge hatchets. It's not like Trickster, where he's just a constant stream of bullshit. There's an active hatchet that you can see. You can try to dodge it. Hitboxes can be stupid, but if you know how the hitboxes work, it's not nearly as bad. If you remember, hitboxes are tied to your neck and not where your head is. So when you're leaning over, your hitbox is still like this, not like this. So it definitely is, you need a little bit of knowledge to go against her, but I do find her pretty fun to go against. Playing as Huntress, in my opinion, is also extremely fun. I love going for long-range shots. There's a reason I mained this killer for, honestly, a solid year. So, in my opinion, I'd say Huntress is fun to go against and fun to play as. The only time it's not really fun is if you get a salty Huntress that's, like, camping, because you basically can't save against the camping Huntress. It is extremely hard. That's probably the only thing that keeps her from S, in my opinion. There are certain playstyles with Huntress, especially like Iridescent Head is still boring, where it is not very exciting to go against. But overall, I think Huntress is one of the more fun killers in the game for sure. Oh, Bubba, you are so sexy to me. I love Bubba. I love going against Bubba. I don't even care if they face cam me. For some reason, there's two exceptions when a Bubba face camps you and a Nemesis tunnels you. I don't know why. Those are just things, instead of getting mad, you just go, "Aw, he's doing what he's supposed to do." I don't know. I think it's a wholesome, I get a little warm feeling in my stomach when a Bubba face camps me. I'm like, look at him. He's doing his thing. Look at him. It's just cute to me. So I think his little trot is adorable. I think actually outplaying chainsaws and knowing when to greet and knowing when to not greet it is very fun as well. I love Bubba. I think he's fun to play. I think he's fun to play against. I'm weird. So this is probably not normal for most people, but I actually don't mind getting face camped by Bubba. Like I said, I think it is hilarious. If it happened every game, sure, it would get tired. But for some reason, I feel like he's just, I don't know. That's just his thing. So I think the counterplay around his chainsaw is very fun. Playing as him is fun. Getting multiple sweeps, chaining things together, getting 2 downs in 1 sweep is extremely satisfying. I would say the face camping thing for most people will prevent him from being an S tier. But I think overall, Bubbas that don't just AFK in the basement are extremely fun to go against. And the only reason he's not S tier is because there are people that do that. They do play Insidious and they do go in the basement, and you're like, that's not very fun. But I do think it's really fun playing as him and playing against him as well. So very solid A tier for me. Freddy, there's really not much going on with Freddy, man. He's just, he's basically just like Clown, except you have to be sleeping. Freddy, you just put pools down and then loop back around, and then they get slowed, and then you can either hit them or you can't hit them. That's really it. There's nothing really else going on with him, honestly. Freddy's just extremely uninteresting in my opinion. Even the fake pallets is not really satisfying. I'm going to put him in D tier. There's just nothing. There's just nothing to him. I don't know. He's just a very, very, very simple killer with basically no mechanic whatsoever. So he's not fun to play. He's not fun to play against. Not OP or anything. He's just boring. There's just nothing going on there. Pig. Pig can be decently satisfying. Trying to get dashes around loops can be kind of satisfying. Actually having head pops happen is very satisfying, but also very rare. Overall, I'd say playing against Pig is probably like, I don't know, a B. She still has to obey the laws of the game. She still has to chase you. She has a built-in side objective. So that's kind of okay. Playing as her is kind of whatever. Overall, I would say the only pigs that are truly unpleasant are like the crate add-ons was like you face the darkness, and the ones that try to make you have your head pop by just essentially following you and interrupting your boxes. That's probably the only super annoying thing. But other than that, I really don't mind going against Pig. She's just sort of whatever. At least she has to kind of chase you as a normal killer, and that can be fun. And also dodging her dash is pretty interesting in my opinion. I don't know. Top of C or bottom of B is what I'm going for here. You know what? She has a cute sun sound. We'll put her in B. Clown is basically just Freddy. It's the same thing. It's the exact same type of gameplay. Freddy puts his trap down on one side. He rotates around the other side of the loop. Clown puts his purple gas on one side. He can put yellow gas on the other side, and they rotate around the loop. You get to hit both times. That's basically it. That's all Clown is. So Clown is just basically pre-dropping pallets. Really not much to him. I will say playing as Clown is a bit more satisfying than someone like Freddy because it does feel kind of nice setting up a yellow gas here and a purple gas here and perfectly rotating so you get the speed boost and they don't get the speed boost, but they get slowdown and you benefit from both. That can be kind of satisfying, but other than that, very simple gameplay. Put shit on one side of loop, rotate her on the other side of loop. That's it. That's his whole thing. So not very exciting at all, in my opinion. Spirit. Spirit used to be very low for me, but ever since they actually added the directional audio, I think she's significantly more entertaining to go against. Mother-Daughter's Ring was also nerfed as well, so she's not stupidly overpowered anymore with that. I actually don't mind going against Spirit. I think it's kind of interesting, especially trying to gauge which side of loop she's going on by kind of roughly hearing where she is, trying to get a pallet stun timed with that. But you can also mind game it as Spirit. You can kind of start going right, so they rotate left, but then you quickly go around right again, and they're not able to get around the loop before they can, hear you come out again. Playing as Spirit has always been pretty satisfying to me. Even the aesthetics, the crackling glass sound effect of using her power. I don't know. I've always found Spirit very fun to play. I actually mained her for like half a year when she came out. She was very fun. So I like Spirit. I actually don't mind going against Spirit anymore, unless she's using super busted shit. But even then, Mother-Daughter's Ring is now not as strong anymore. It's still very good, but it's not stupidly strong anymore. So that made her jump up probably from C to B for me. So I would say overall, Spirit now was a solid B. She's still extremely good though, and I can understand why people might view her a bit lower because of that. But I actually don't mind going against her. Legion is going to be weird for me. Legion is one of those killers that I think I will disagree with most people on here. I think most people would say Legion is overall like maybe a C to play as, but D to go against. For me, it's actually the opposite. I think Legion is like a D to play because there's nothing to him. He just go fast and hit people, and they can't really not get hit. And it's like, okay, that's it. That's my whole power. It's just not. I don't know. There's no skill cap to it. It's just very, very simple. But I'm weird. I actually like going against Legion. I would say going against Legion is a B for me. And people will go, oh, it's the mending simulator. Well, it's true. A lot of the reason that Legion is seen as annoying is because people just play against Legion completely wrong. They just will try repeatedly healing. They'll mend as soon as they get hit. What I do when I get hit by Legion is I just ignore it. I just go, okay, and then I just go repair a generator until my bleed out bar is right about to hit there. And a lot of the time it's because the Legion will end up coming back during that, window, and I'll try to down you. And if you haven't wasted time mending, he hasn't accomplished anything yet. So one of the biggest mistakes people do is immediately mend against Legion. That also allows him to rechain his heartbeat and allows him to actually get the downs with the power. So I think that's something people do incorrectly. And when I play against Legion, I don't mend until the very last second. And I think that means it makes it more fun to go against Legion, because for the most part, he has to just chase me. And my favorite thing in this game is getting to loop killers on Survivor. On Killer, it's obviously getting to chase people, but on Survivor, my favorite thing is getting to loop people. And Legion has no anti-loop, so I get to use the full map and do whatever the hell I want, and that's fun to me. So I don't mind that I have to occasionally mend sometimes. The point is, if he needs to down me, he still needs to chase me like a normal killer. He can't sneak up on me like Wraith and get it down before I get to have a chase. He will always have to chase me as normal. And so for that reason, I think he's actually kind of fun to go against. So I'm going to put him like kind of on the top of C, because he's boring to play in my opinion, though. Plague. Plague is... I actually think Plague is pretty fun to play. I think hitting Corrupt Purges is very, very engaging. God, I can't talk. I think that the whole back rev into instant down can be pretty satisfying as well. But it's mostly all about the Corrupt Purge. Corrupt Purge is a very, very satisfying power to use. It can be frustrating sometimes too, because it'll like lag behind. You need to know how to aim it, but it's a very satisfying power to use. I think Plague is actually a very strong killer. She's a solid A tier. And playing against her is a bit more complicated though, because teams typically do not know how to play against Plague very well. And it's not even that you just should never cleanse. Sometimes you should cleanse, but the whole point is you need to put fountains in areas where it's a massive disadvantage for her to go there. So if you're in a corner of the map where a gen has been completed, you use that fountain, she's never going to go there because she has to spend half of her Corrupt Purge walking there and then walking back. So little things like that make it a lot easier to go against Plague, but people don't do it. They just cleanse wherever. And so with your standard solo queue team, I'd say going against Plague is a C. With people that know what they're doing, it can be like an A. But for the most part, I actually enjoy Plague. I think she's like probably at the bottom of A tier, and I still think she has to play the game normally. And survivors have control of when she gets her power, but if they don't, then she's a one-shot killer for everybody, and that can be scary too. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting give and take there. I actually like going against Plague, and I think Plague is pretty fun to play. So Ghostface is very frustrating in my opinion. I'm honestly going to put... he's kind of fun to play. I'm not going to put him in C there, or D there. I'd say I put him kind of right next to Myers. He's annoying for a different reason, where Myers is annoying because he stalks your teammates and then you go down before you can react. Ghostface, he stalks you and you look at him and nothing happens. The amount of times I've been stalked by a stealth Ghostface that is this far away from me, and I'm like, wow, where is he? And then I just get instant down is way too high. The reveal mechanics are incredibly annoying. And they're annoying in the opposite direction too. As Ghostface, sometimes I will be behind a wall for 2 seconds and I'll get revealed by a guy who I can't even see anymore. So the reveal mechanic is what makes Ghostface, in my opinion, very unfun overall. It's just kind of a nightmare playing as him and as against him. It's just very frustrating on both sides, just because the stalk mechanic. If the stalk mechanic actually functioned properly and the reveal mechanic functioned properly, I'd say he'd be a solid B, but because it doesn't, he's going to go in C for me. Demogorgon. I consider him actually pretty fun to play. I made demo for, almost a year. And I don't know, I think the charges are just very satisfying to hit, knowing the exact hitbox of it, the exact range of it, knowing the exact time to begin one, the whole 0.65 seconds thing, knowing that a lot of his add-ons actually don't help that at all. And I don't know, Barb's Glasses, Blackheart, I think is the most fun build you can run on him. And he's just a very, very aggressive chase killer. I don't really use portals on him. I just use him as a very, very aggressive anti-loop killer. And he's really good at it, in my opinion. But I will be unbiased here and say, in terms of going against it, not super fun, because he is a very good zoner. He can basically just freely zone people, and you have to choose between getting hit or just running away, and it can be pretty uninteresting. So even though I love Demogorgon, I'd say playing as him is an A. Playing against him is more of a C. I'll average it out to the bottom of B here, but I can understand how going against him is seen as not super exciting, but I like going against him, but that's probably because I just played him a lot. Oni, I think I love Oni. before I even go further, I'm just going to say Oni is an A tier. Oni is really fun to play when you get your power going. And honestly, even playing against him when he's in his power is super... It's the scariest thing in the game, in my opinion. I have like almost 6,000 hours in this game. A Oni in his power is still scary to me. And for good reason. I think he legit has the most powerful power in the entire game, but just doesn't last very long, so he's not that strong. But when he's in his power, that shit is terrifying. And there are a lot of interesting changes of gameplay very quickly when you're going against the Oni in his power. Certain things that would make no sense to do, like running around a corner and then crouching right at the corner so he overshoots it, is very, very exciting. It's actually significantly easier to spin an Oni when they're in their power because their model or their camera is blocked by the model when they're swinging. So spinning Onis is actually pretty easy, even if they're a good player. I've been spun as an Oni when I'm trying to charge my power before, so it's kind of hard to see. But also using the power is super satisfying, knowing exactly how to glide along surfaces for the right angle, knowing how to flick at the right time. Overall, he's just a pretty satisfying killer to play, and I love going against him as well. The only times it's not satisfying to play as him is when you get a super good team that plays very safe pre-drops every pallet, and you don't get your power till there's like, 1 or 2 gens left. That can suck. But for the most part, Oni is a very fun, well-made killer, and I love him a lot. Deathslinger is not quite as annoying anymore because now you actually have time to react to him aiming, so there's a bit of a chance for you to do something against it. I'm not a huge fan of playing as Deathslinger. He can be frustrating, whereas Huntress, you would just get a hit. Deathslinger doesn't always get guaranteed a hit, but he can also shoot through smaller areas and then whip them around the loop, and that can be pretty interesting too. In my opinion, he's kind of a C. I never really find Deathslinger games to be awful, but I don't think he's D tier anymore. I'm pretty sure that's where I put him last time, because you can actually react to him shooting now, so it's honestly not that big of a deal anymore, but he's still not very exciting. That being said, dodging shots, knowing when he's going to shoot and guessing when he's going to shoot and then dodging the shot, it's pretty satisfying. Pyramid Head. To me, there are 2 types of Pyramid Heads. There are Pyramid Heads that actually go for shots through walls, and I would say those are a solid B tier and fun to go against. They're actually pretty interesting. But most Pyramid Heads, they just fake their power at a pallet, you run past it, then they just M1 you, and like, oh boy, that's fun. And the whole gameplay is basically taking the 50-50 of whether or not they're going to do that, which is, it's okay, I guess. It's not the worst thing ever. I don't find this killer fun to play. I find his tank controls when you're doing the judgment there to be very awkward. I'm not a huge fan of controlling it. There's also the whole issue of him being able to very easily tunnel people, like extremely easily. He can essentially proxy camp them too because it's a very short radius that the cages will move. So yeah, I'm honestly going to put Pyramid Head pretty low because most people play him in a pretty unfun way, and I don't find him fun to play or satisfying at all. Blight. Blight is a solid S tier to play. Blight is extremely fun to play. But the way people play Blight and the add-ons that they use is like a C. So Blight probably has the biggest variable out of all of these. I'm going to put him in B just to be safe here. The thing is, a no add-on Blight is, in my opinion, S tier and fun to go against. I think he's genuinely super fun to play as. People can't hold W against you. You can counter almost every loop if you're good enough. But at the same time, as a survivor, you have a chance to counter it. He's not moving at mock speeds. He doesn't have busted add-ons or anything like that. A base kit Blight is extremely fun. It's honestly S tier. But no one does that. No one runs base kit Blight. They're at least doing Compound 33, Alk Ring, Adrenaline Vial, Double or Rat and Crow. Blight Tag. Everyone is always running one of these add-ons as Blight. You've never seen a Blight not run at least one of those. So I have to judge it based on realism. You're never going to see a no add-on Blight, and pretending that that is what you're going to see is just, you're not going to see that. So that alone drops him down several pegs just because going against Alk Ring and stuff like that is miserable. There's basically nothing you can do a lot of the time. So just because of his add-ons, he's dropped down 2 tiers. But if he had more balanced, non-ridiculous add-ons, I'd say he'd be a solid S for both. Twins, God, I see 1 twins every month. Honestly, because I don't see twins anymore, like at all, I don't really mind twins as much. There's also a lot of interesting counters to twins now, things like Plot Twist. You can actually kind of do things against the twins that are significantly stronger now, and I don't find her quite as annoying to go against. There's a lot more anti-slug things as well, so she's not as annoying. Playing as her, I actually find her a bit more fun than I thought I did, because she's essentially just a Demogorgon with Victor that can just go higher, so that can be kind of fun. So, I don't know. Overall, I think she's not in the absolute bottom anymore, but she's also lends herself to a very slug-heavy and kind of proxy camping playstyle, which is, yeah, not going to be very exciting at all. So, I don't think she's among the worst anymore. She's certainly not very fun at all. Buddy, do you not like twins? but he doesn't like twins either. Trickster is a D. Trickster is a solid D tier. I think Trickster is not very exciting to play at all. It's basically Huntress with none of the satisfaction of hitting really nice long-range hatchets. And I don't know. I think that's really it. It's basically just Huntress without the satisfying crunch of hitting that hatchet. And playing against Trickster, it's Huntress without the satisfying dodging of a hatchet because it's just a constant stream of mini hatchets. So the only real play with Trickster is to hold forward. You just hold forward, run in a straight line, and just put stuff in between you and him and hope that there's walls in the way. That's all you can do. You can't really like loop a Trickster because he will eventually wear you down with knives. So you just have to keep running away in a straight line. And that can, I don't know, it's just not very exciting. So overall, Trickster, yeah, really boring. Buddy, holy shit. Please hold. Nemesis. Nemesis is one of those killers I feel like people will disagree with me on a lot about. I actually don't mind Nemesis at all. I actually kind of like Nemesis. I find him so goofy that I can never really get mad if he's tunneling me. I don't know. He's just such a stupid looking thing. And I actually don't really mind going against Nemesis because I think there's a lot of stuff you can do against him at certain loops. Crouching on the other side of windows or on the other side of, like, you know, waist high things will actually make his tentacle miss. So properly timed dodges offer counterplay. But at the same time, he has an equal chance to hit you if he does it at a better part of the loop and stuff like that. So the zombies can be pretty annoying to go against, or they can be absolutely a non-factor. He's got a lot of variability there. I think playing as Nemesis is pretty satisfying as well. I like the aesthetics, the crunch of the punch. Dr. Seuss book. The actual tentacle usage is kind of weird and awkward to hit with sometimes, but you can drag it, which is pretty interesting. And it can be very good at anti-loop later. Overall, I think Nemesis is pretty enjoyable for me. I think people will disagree with me on this one a lot, but I'm weird because I like getting tunneled. So I don't find Nemesis to be problematic at all. I kind of like Nemesis. Pinhead. Now, I play only solo queue, or mostly solo queue, so Pinhead, in my opinion, is a nightmare to go against. And playing as Pinhead, I don't find satisfying either. I'll get like the sickest long-range twisting 360 Varial McTwist Christ air actual pin like chain to hit him, and then it'll just break immediately. Nothing happens. So I don't know. I don't find Pinhead very satisfying to play as. I think most Pinheads actually try to play around Chain Hunt, not the actual active use of their power. So they rely on the passive effect more than the active effect, which again, I don't find very interesting. It's relying on something that you're not even doing to have an effect. And that's not very interesting. So I'm not a huge fan of Pinhead. At the very least, there's some skill component to hitting his power, and going against him can be kind of okay because you can still break chains on tiles. There's actually things your teammates can do to break chains as well. So I wouldn't say he's the worst, but definitely not a very engaging killer to go against. Okay, Artist. Artist, I actually find pretty fun to play. And the reason is I don't really play Artist in the boring way where you just sit a bird at a loop and then wait till they go around that side of it and then you hit him with a bird. I find that really boring. My favorite thing to do is run like Festering Carrion. And with Artist, you basically spend one of your charges quickly to tag someone with crows, and then you essentially try to shotgun people through walls. Doesn't matter the distance they're at. I like doing long-range shots with this killer all the time. I find it really fun to try to predict where survivors at a distance are going to be running to try to dodge the incoming birds. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I find that to be actually surprisingly fun. I actually mained Artist for about a month or two when she came out, and I had a good time. The reason I stopped playing as her is because I realized that going against her kind of sucks. And it's not really the way that I usually play Artist, but the way that most people play Artist. She has kind of a bad rap as someone that just drops her bird at a loop, rotates around the loop, then hits you with the bird. It's just not very exciting. But I do think there's a potential for Artist to be very interesting. And because of that, I mean, I think playing as Artist in that way is a solid A tier. But going against the boring Artist that just put a bird in a loop and then that's it is a solid C tier. I'm going to average her out to B. I actually like Artist more than most people, though, so that might be a bit different from your opinion. Sadako. Man, Sadako is literally like A or D, depending on what kind of one you're going against. If it's one that's actually trying to, like, get hooks and just use Condemn for slowdown and things like that, I mean, she's a solid A tier because she's pretty easy to loop. You can have fun against her as Survivor, and it's not a big deal. If you're going against one that's doing the Condemn strat, she is literally, I need to make, like, a separate tier. Can I even, I don't know. I feel like she needs to be, like, down here. Condemn Sadako is like the most unfun thing ever. It is awful to go against. There's no hooks. Everyone's slugged all the time. There's no chases. It's just awful. But if she's not doing that, she can be pretty fun to go against. Now, playing as her, I think the new version of her, I've been trying to go for hooks with her. It's kind of satisfying. You get basically a built-in slowdown from Condemned, teleporting everywhere and things like that. I think playing as her is not so bad anymore, but because of how incredibly unfun the Condemned strat is, I have to keep her a D tier. There's nowhere else she can go. Dredge. He's kind of in the middle. I find Dredge super unsatisfying to play. The reason is the locked lockers. Even in Nightfall, I'll have this perfect locker cut off, ready to go. I'm using my power. Here we go. I go there, and then the locker's locked, and the guy just gets away. There's nothing more frustrating than having the perfect web of lockers set out. You kite them right to it, then you teleport, and then you get nothing for it. I absolutely hate that. I wish lockers were like disabled in Nightfall or something like that. I don't know, or locks were disabled, something like that. But that's the main reason I don't like him. You can't really use his power to teleport to cut people off and chase because it takes simply way too long. Now his power for anti-loop is kind of boring, but it's not as boring as some killers. It's not like Knight where you're guaranteed to hit. There's at least a chance to kind of predict whether or not they're actually going to teleport or not. But I do find his anti-loop to be very uninteresting. I think most people would actually agree with that. There's really not much going on there. It's basically a 50-50, and you just kind of hope that you guess right there. Overall, I would say Dredge is probably a B to play, C to go against. I'll put him on like kind of the higher end of C. Wesker S. I don't think I need to go out. Half my videos are sucking Wesker's dick. I think he's the most fun killer design in the entire game. The only thing that makes him not perfect is they need to change it so you don't gain infection until you perform a conspicuous action off a hook, so he can't tunnel. Other than that, I think Wesker is legit perfect design. He has perfect options for counterplay. There's a lot of tech involved with him, so there's a high skill ceiling. The skill floor with him is pretty low as well, though, because you can just basically point blank charge people. He's got his own passive slowdown. He's a snarky little shit. It has a secondary objective with cleansing that gives you information so you know where to take additional chases. He's got map control because he can move around fast. He's got interesting add-ons. Basically, every single thing about Wesker is good. There's no complaints. I think he's like the perfect killer in this game. Knight is a big fat D tier, to no one's surprise. There is, well, I would say playing as Knight, I could see if you wanted to put this as maybe a C, because sometimes, like, trying to chase someone while planning to cut someone else off, the idea of splitting your focus between two separate people can be pretty fun. I understand that. And then having kind of control of the map based off of that, I get it. That's fun. Unfortunately, he is so boring to go against, he can't be anywhere but D tier. I'd say he's above Sadako. No, actually no. Knight is basically... Knight drops his Knight, you run away, because that's the only option you have. You have to leave a loop. If there's not a connected loop, you get hit. If you're in a corner, you get hit. If you're not in a corner and there is a connected loop, you don't get hit. That's it. That's the flow chart of Knight gameplay. There's no input from either side. Those are the only correct options on both sides. If you're getting the banner against the Knight, it's not because you're so good at countering Knight. It's because the Knight is an absolute idiot. There's no reason a good Knight will ever give you the banner, so your only option is to just simply run away, and that is very, very boring. I don't even need to talk about it. Singularity is... I actually like Singularity. I think he's fun as shit to play. He can be a little frustrating sometimes, which is why he wouldn't be S tier. Sometimes tagging people is a little not clear, and sometimes it just will catch the edge of their foot, but it won't tag them. The EMPs can be frustrating, but they've been nerfed, so they're not nearly as prevalent. But the constant teleporting, the constant relentless nature of the killer, you're always in their face. You can't really get away from a Singularity once he's tracked to you and you don't have the EMP on. Setting up a web of cameras to hit people, to teleport to them even when you can't see them, is very, very satisfying. And playing against him, I would say, is more of probably a C or a B. There's not so much you could do against him. You do have options, so it's not like you just can't do anything. If there is chained together windows, you still vault faster than he does, so that's fine. You can still pre-drop pallets. He kicks them faster, but you still gain distance. So there's still some things you can do, but a Singularity in overclock is very difficult to get away from. But then you do have options for EMPs too, so it's not so bad. So there's a give and take there. I'd say he's a solid, like, middle-of-the-road B tier. I think Singularity is a pretty cool addition to the game. I've been enjoying him a lot. He's not the best thing ever, but yeah, he's pretty fun overall. And I guess that's it. I had a feeling Wesker would be the only S tier one, and Skull Merchant and Knight obviously are going to be D tier, but that is it. That is my current fun tier list overall, taking into account both sides and averaging them out in a very loose, unclear, unscientific way. But that is it. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts. I know a couple of these I will differ on most people. I know my thoughts on, like, Artist are a little different. My thoughts on, Wesker are a little different for people, but Curious to hear what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.